Alrighty, welcome back to the channel, everyone, and welcome to part 2 of the Cloud Portfolio series, where I'm showing you step by step how to build and deploy a cloud application from scratch. In this video, we're going to be building out your front end or your static website. And if you missed part 1, make sure to go check that out for a high-level overview of just, everything we're going to be building out throughout the series, as well as some step-by-step instructions of how to set up your machine so you're able to follow along with me throughout this entire journey. Now, taking a quick look at some high-level requirements we pulled together in part 1, we're going to be focusing primarily on this top requirement in this video, which is converting your resume into HTML, applying some CSS styling, and then also just writing some JavaScript that'll be responsible for making an API call to both get and increment the active view count on your portfolio. Alrighty, so now diving into the process flow diagram, again, we're going to be building out your static website, which is represented by the browser in this diagram here. This is also known as the presentation layer of our system. All right, so diving in, go ahead and open up GitHub, go to your dashboard, and we are going to start by creating a new repository. So click New. You can give it any sort of name you would like. I'm going to call mine Azure Cloud Portfolio. Keep it public. Add a README file as well. We'll be writing some documentation later down the road. And then everything else you can just leave defaulted and then click Create Repository. Alrighty, so what this is doing is this is creating a GitHub repository, which really is just a centralized location on the internet for us to store our code. And even though there's no code here yet, the next thing we want to do is go ahead and establish a link or a connection between our local machines and this remote repository. So we have an easy way of both pulling code down and pushing code up to this repository. So go ahead and click on this green code button, and we're going to do an HTTPS clone. So go ahead and click HTTPS and copy the clone link. And then next, what I want you to do is go ahead and open up Visual Studio Code, where we will now basically choose where we want to develop this app at locally on our machine. So you really can store this anywhere. For me, I have a code directory that I'm going to throw it in, but really feel free to put this anywhere on your machine. Go ahead and open that up, and you will now see that our file explorer is now scoped to this code directory. And obviously there's nothing inside of there. I just created it, so there's nothing to look at. But if I run a git clone and then paste in the GitHub URL that we just copied, you will see that this now pulls down that Azure Cloud Portfolio project or repository. And then we've got our README in there as well, basically showing us that we are successful in pulling down this repository. Okay, so the next thing we want to do, we want to actually go ahead and start working on writing the code for this website. And what I'm going to do and what I recommend you do is rather than doing this all from scratch and starting at ground zero, I'm going to be using basically an online website template, a free website template that's going to basically serve as a backbone or a foundation for this project. This is a very common thing to do in software engineering. Very rarely do you start a project from ground zero. Usually, you pull in libraries, frameworks or templates, really to just kind of help get a strong foundation and put you on the right direction from the start. So go ahead and download this website template. It's going to move it into your downloads. And then I want you to go back to Visual Studio Code, open up your downloads, and we should be able now to go ahead and, so you can see here CV is the name of the template that we downloaded. We can copy all these files and drag them now into our Azure Cloud Portfolio, and perfect. So you can see now all of that code that we just downloaded now has been moved into our project. So first things first, let's go ahead and open up the index.html. This is where we're going to be living for the majority of this video. This is the entry point or the main HTML file that drives our website. You can go ahead and right click on this and open it in the browser just to make sure that we copied everything over correctly. And as you can see, we've got a really good starting point for this website. As I scroll down, we've got a lot of the elements that we will need. Obviously, we're going to need to kind of personalize this and tailor this to ourselves, as well as kind of rip out a lot of the fluff and kind of make this a little bit more minimal. But again, we have a really good starting point with this template. Okay. So next thing, what we're going to do, again, we're going to be, really personalizing this and putting a lot of our own information and detail in here. But, before I dive into that, I really want to just touch at a high level on what HTML is. I'm not sure, I assume a few of you guys are, pretty new to software engineering. HTML, you can really think of it as, it's the blueprint for your website. So HTML consists of a number of different elements, which you can think of as building blocks for your website or your web page. Similar to, how a house is made up of, it's got a bunch of building blocks. For example, it's got like bricks, a door, windows, walls, a roof. Similar to, how a house is made of many building blocks. An HTML website is built of many elements, which are the building blocks of that website. So you can see here, for example, we've got a title, which is a building block or an element. As I scroll down, we have got a header, which is a building block or an element. Inside of that header, we got a nav bar, which is another building block or element, and so on and so forth. So that's kind of what we're looking at here. All right, so let's go ahead. We're going to change this, our title, to be specific to us. So I'm going to call this Ben's Cloud Portfolio. Go ahead and save that. As I scroll down, let's see. All right, so we've got a nav bar. Again, I'm gonna really just make this like a minimum viable product. I'm gonna rip out a lot of the bloat in this custom template. Feel free though, if you really want to make this, if you want to go all out and make this really robust and have a lot of detail in your portfolio, there's no need to do exactly what I'm doing at this stage of the game. You can really have this front end website look however you would like. So I'm gonna remove a couple of these nav options. And then, yeah, here I'm going to go ahead and just put my name in. And if you look, so if I go back and refresh, so you can already see that the nav options have updated as well as the title here in my tab has updated. So we're going to have a really quick feedback loop when writing or when updating this HTML. Basically, whenever we save the file and refresh the page, we're going to be able to see our changes, which is really nice. So I'm going to change this. I'll say like, hey, I'm Ben. And then let me refresh that. That looks good. This is a little bit of a subheader, and we're going to use this section to basically show our visitor count for this website. So I can go ahead, let me replace this. I'll just say, and this page has XXX views. Cool. And I'm putting XXX for now. This is just like a static placeholder. We're going to come back around later and update this to be dynamic and pull from an API. But for now, I'm just going to basically, keep this pretty static. All right, so these are your social links. If you want to put a link in here, all you got to do is just, insert the link, HTTPS. And I'll put like google.com here. I know this obviously is not a Facebook link, but just to like showcase how to do this. So then if I click on the Facebook link, you can see it opens Google in a new tab. So you can fill out these however you would like. I'm going to keep them like pretty bare bones, pretty minimal. If you leave pound, that will basically just tell the link to not open and not do anything. So I'll clean a few of these up. Let me delete these bottom three. Okay. So let's keep on scrolling. We're making good progress here. Next, we have a quick about me section. I'll just say, what's up? What's up, everyone? I'm Ben, a cloud engineer based out of Austin, Texas. Cool. I think that's good for now. Let's go back, refresh, see how this looks. Nice. This looks good. Next, okay, so I'm going to get rid of this contact details and resume download. I don't really think I need this. This is just fluff, so let's go ahead and remove that. You can see that there is this div here, which is like one of the elements or building blocks I mentioned, and it's a wrapper around both of those intersections. So I'm just going to delete the wrapper. That looks good. Let's keep scrolling. All right, so here we've got like education. I'm going to change this to certifications. Again, feel free to leave this as education if you'd like, and then I'm just going to like put some, like AWS Cert 1. And then I'm going to get rid of the title because our certifications do not have titles. I'll leave the standard date there. Let me get rid of some of this detail. This next one I'll do like Azure Cert 1. Cool. I'll get rid of the title again, and I'll just leave the dates. And even though these aren't my real dates, I'm really just doing this just to show you guys how I would edit and tweak this template to kind of be my own. Obviously, you're going to want to put like your real information in here because this is going to be your resume and your portfolio that you share with employers. Okay, so then work. Again, I'll just like change this like company 1. Definitely not a UX designer since we're making this as a video for cloud engineers. I'll go ahead and change that to cloud engineer. Everything else I'm just going to rip out and leave as is. Okay, we'll do like company 2. And hopefully this is making sense, right? I'm just coming in. This is like a template, so it's got just a bunch of like filler text. And I'm just kind of coming in here and cleaning it up and like adding in what I would like. Okay, so let's go ahead and refresh this. I think we're getting pretty close. So I've got my, hey, I'm Ben, how many page views we've got, some social links, the quick about me section. One thing we will fix is this is like a stock image. I'll put in my actual image here. We'll circle back around on that. Let's get like the kind of the formatting of this all correct first and get all the sections sorted out. Okay, so I think I've got pretty much everything I need. So everything below this work I'm going to get rid of, like skills I don't really need, even though that's kind of cool. I don't need that. We got, it looks like some kind of projects and then like a link and just another section. So again, let's clean all of this up. So I'll go ahead and just remove these skills here. A quicker way to do this rather than like having to like copy and scroll down is you can, VS Code allows you to collapse or fold sections of your code. So I can like fold this section here and it will then basically collapse everything to the end of the section, and then I can just like copy it and delete it that way. So that's a really quick way of doing this. I'm gonna get rid of the call to action. I will get rid of the testimonial section. All right, we're burning through this. Contact, nice. All right, we definitely want to keep our footer. Again, we've got our social links down here, so I'll let you do what you want with these. And then one important thing is make sure you keep the copyright here. Since we're using this free template, we want to make sure we give CV and styleshout.com credit for doing a lot of the heavy lifting for us here. So make sure you leave this in your footer as well. All right, so I think we're getting pretty close. Let's take a quick inventory. All right, so this all looks good at the top. Obviously, we're gonna need to replace this. We're gonna need to fix this and have this be dynamic from our API, but we'll circle around to that. Oh yeah, okay, so the static image, let's fix that right now. So if I scroll, I should be able to find an image tag. Yeah, perfect. So we got an image tag here, and you can see the source is images/profilepic.jpg. Images, profilepic.jpg, and yeah, so you can see this is where it's pulling that from. So let's go ahead and let's rip that out. I've already got a picture on my machine I can use, so I will go ahead and use that. Yep, so I'll drag that into here. It's profile_pic.png. Profile_pic.png. All right, that looks good. Let's go ahead and refresh now. And nice, so you can see now I've got the picture here. Okay, so I think the only thing we really have left here is we need to go ahead and make this a view count dynamic. And what we're going to do, we're going to write some JavaScript for this. JavaScript is just basically a language that allows you to build interactive elements on a website. So it's the perfect tool for this job. Basically, when the page loads, this needs to go ahead and refresh itself. So before we write JavaScript, what we want to do is let's go find that XXX that we had. We basically need to wrap that in its own element. And the reason we have to do that is JavaScript basically needs something to target. It needs a way to know what element or what part of the web page to update dynamically. So I'm going to go ahead and just create an A tag. You really could create like a div or, really any type of HTML tag here, but I'm gonna use an A tag because it's pretty clean. And then we'll do ID, we'll call it like visitor counter. Cool, I think that looks good. And then I'm also gonna change this from an H3 to a span, which is just like a smaller font. It should be a little bit cleaner and more minimal. Let's refresh. Perfect, yeah, so this is starting to look really good here. So you can see I've got my name, the page views, and then, yeah, so now we're gonna go ahead and write the JavaScript code that will be responsible for updating this on page load. Okay, so to do that, what we need to do, we want to create a new JavaScript file. So we have a JavaScript directory here. Let's create a new file in it. I'm going to call it main.js. You really could call this anything you want. It doesn't necessarily have to be main.js. And then first and foremost, what we need, so we need basically a variable that's going to hold the URL of our API, our function app API, which we have not yet built. We'll be building that in a later part of this series. And then we're going to be coming back and basically, replacing this with the actual function app URL a little bit down the road. Okay, so now that we've got that, the next thing we need, so we actually need a function now, and the function will be responsible for, both calling the API as well as doing the interaction or the substitution of XXX with our actual view count. So let's go ahead and get that started. We can create a function. We'll call it like update visitor count. And as you can see here, I'm getting like some IntelliSense, like it's kind of helping me write my code for me. And the reason that it's doing this is I have GitHub Copilot installed. So if you go to extensions, you can then type in Copilot. And yeah, you can see I've got this installed. You can install this on your VS Code instance if you'd like, and then just restart Visual Studio Code and you should have Copilot working for you. It's a cool tool. It kind of like helps you with your syntax, and it's pretty smart. It's only getting better. It allows you to write code a little bit quicker. All right, so now we've got our function, and our function, what we first want to do is make our API call. And as you can see here, Copilot is smart enough to know what we're doing, mainly just because of like the name of our function. So we are going to, let's just change this. So we're going to do a fetch. We're going to pass in our function app URL. Fetch is just like an interface that's exposed in JavaScript that allows you to make basic API calls. So this is just making an API call to our function app. And then what we want to do is we want to go ahead, so we want to deserialize the response into a data object. Basically a way of saying, hey, so this response, is going to be pretty ugly, and we want to go ahead and format it so it's nice and clean for us to reference later, and we're going to put that in a variable called data. And then last but not least, so we want to go ahead and we want to then do the substitution. We want to build that interactive component. And basically how this reads is this is going to scan the entire HTML document, look for any element that has an ID of visitor-count, and then it's going to replace the inner text with the response from our API. So this is exactly what we're looking for. I think we actually we gave a different ID to that element. Let's look. So the ID here, as you can see, is visitor counter. So we want to go ahead and copy that and replace this. Cool, so that's looking pretty good. One thing I do want to do, I want to go ahead and build in some error handling. So I'm going to use a try catch, which is basically just a way of handling any errors that occur. So the way this reads, basically it's going to run these 3 lines of code, and if at any point an exception is thrown, it's going to catch that exception, and then it's going to allow us to handle that exception however we would like. And I'm going to go ahead and just console.error it out. That'll give us a way to kind of debug it in our browser. And I'll just say like calling function app API failed, and then write out the error. And then similarly up here, I'm going to do a console.log under our actual API call for the same reason. Just it's going to give us a cleaner way of kind of debugging and understanding what's going on inside of our browser. And I'm not going to write out the full response. I'll just say like making an API call to function app URL, just so we have like a trace of that happening. Okay, so we are getting pretty close here. Okay, yeah, so the one thing we still need, so we've got this function written, but our website doesn't know when to call this function currently. It's just a function that's existing, but nothing's actually calling it. So we're going to basically use event listeners to go ahead and trigger this function. And what we can do is we can trigger this DOM content loaded, which basically it's an event that gets fired and run anytime our web page is refreshed. So whenever our website is refreshed and the content is loaded, it is now going to call our update visitor count function, which then will make our API call to our function app. It'll then, get us a nice clean response, and then it will do the substitution for us on that interactive element that we created. Cool, so I think we're pretty much good to go here. Let me go ahead and open this up. To look at the console, you can just right click and click inspect and then click on console. And when I refresh here, I should see these console messages. I do not. Okay, so we are missing something. What are we missing? Okay. So the last thing we need to do now is, since we've created this JavaScript file, main.js, we now need to import it into our main index.html, just as a way of allowing our HTML file to recognize our JavaScript file that we just created. So this looks good. Now if I come back, refresh the page, perfect. So you can see now we have got our error message here. It's calling function app API failed, and then the inner type of that exception is a type error that failed to fetch. So this is working as we'd expect. And it's throwing an error because, if you remember correctly, we don't have a function app URL defined. So right now it's coming in here, it's trying to make this API call, and it doesn't have a URL to call, so it's failing. So then this catch is coming into play, and then it's writing out this error for us in our console. So that's a little bit about kind of the process flow and what's happening there. Alrighty, I think we are about ready to push this code up to our GitHub repo. Before we do that, I'm going to do a little bit of cleanup. We're not using this demo.html file, so I'm going to delete it. I'm not going to spend a ton of time doing cleanup, but I also know that image we were using. Yeah, this stock image we can delete as well. There's no need to keep that around. You can take some time and really dig through and clean this up and make this a nice clean project. But I think this is good enough, at least for me. Okay, so next thing we need to do, we will need to now push our code up to that repository. In order to do that, open up your terminal and run a git add a. This is just saying add all of your local changes. And then so I need to actually cd into the project that I'm on, which is Azure Cloud Portfolio. And then I can run git add a, which is going to add all of my local changes. And then from there, I need to go ahead and make a commit. And a commit is basically just a way of kind of grouping or consolidating all of your changes kind of into a nice little record or a nice message. And I'll call this adding front end. Cool. And then the last thing we need to do is go ahead and just push this up, which this will push these changes via that commit we made up to our repository. So let's do that. Okay, so now if I go to my repository, what should happen is when I refresh, we should see all of our local changes here on this remote repository. And exactly, yeah. So you can see here all of our local changes that we just developed on our machine now exist in this repository online. So this is really good. This is what we're looking for. And I think that actually will end part 2 of this series. We have gone ahead and built out our front end via a static website. And in the next video, we're going to go ahead and look at building out our database and our backend. So I will plan on catching you guys over there.